I'm here to do a book review today. This is my week to do a recommendation for you on a good read. And the one I'm going to pick is the one I'm doing for book club this month. I'm actually leading the discussion and I'm really excited. It's a book I've always loved. It's called The Hiding Place by Corrie ten Boom. It's not a new book. It's been around a long time. Corrie wrote a lot of books. This one, hey there, J. Bell. Good to see you. Corrie ten Boom wrote a lot of books. This one she wrote with the Guidepost editor, Elizabeth Sherrill. And she wrote this after she was out of the concentration camp. It sounds like a downer to read a book about someone who survived Nazi Germany, occupied Holland during the World War II. But it's actually a tremendous story of resilience and hope. And I do recommend it to a lot of people because we get so caught up in the crises and the issues and what we don't have around us in our own lives that a story about perseverance, a story about seeding hope and truth into the lives of people in the least expected places is an encouraging story. It is not a downer. It's actually very, very encouraging. There are parts of it that are gut-wrenching to see that people went through the horrors of Nazi Germany and concentration camps. However, even in the midst of that kind of suffering, Corrie ten Boom, and especially her sister Betsy, were able to deliver hope. And the things that I took away from this story, I want to deliver to you. And I do want to recommend that you check this book out. If you have never read it, it is definitely worth a read. It's an easy read. The beginning of it gives you right into the middle of what it would have been like to live in Holland during that time when Betsy and Corrie and her father were hiding Jews and people who were considered ripe for extermination by the Nazis. This really gets you to think about what is important when everything else is gone. Sometimes we get to places in life where we feel like we're losing everything, but there are things that are truly vital that the world around you cannot take away. Unless you let go of it, it's yours forever. And this book helps you pinpoint those things that you can keep with you, that you can hold on to, and you can build with to make a life that's beautiful, even in the most dismal of times and in the most dark of places in the world. It teaches the value of intangible as much more important than the physical circumstances that we are in. And for example, kindness and generosity, things that don't cost us anything, were of extreme importance and value in Nazi-occupied Holland and in the concentration camp. But they were also the most easy to let go of when things got dark. However, one person, when Betsy came into her barracks at the concentration camp, she was, by example, able to completely transform the dynamics of the people in that barracks. She brought kindness. She brought light, and the light spread. People became kinder. They became more likely to say please and thank you and excuse me, whereas before they were very selfish. And it's easy to be caught up in selfishness when we're in the midst of a place of fear and darkness and want and crisis and hurt like they were. Instead, Betsy and Corrie spread kindness and generosity. They gave the very, very little that they had, and they did not have much. But they shared it with the people around them in Holland before they went in the concentration camp. But they also shared it at great personal risk to the people around them in their barracks. And they were even showing kindness to the enemy in many circumstances. So this is something that's atypical, but it brought them an unexpected blessing. They were happier because of the way they were treating other people. It wasn't just something that benefited the people around them. It actually transformed their experience of the concentration camp. They began to look forward to every opportunity to share hope, peace, and the gospel of Christ with those around them. Our faith is another thing that we can always share with others, and when we do share faith and share encouragement and lift other people up, it changes us. It changes our perspective. And it is one of the most valuable things of life to share things of the Spirit, things that last forever, that can never be taken away. Those things are always more important, always more valuable than the things that we have and the physical experiences that we have around us. And forgiveness is another thing that is of immeasurable value. And it was one of the main themes of the story. And it had to be. In order to survive those circumstances, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, they had to do the hardest work of forgiveness anyone might ever have been able to do since early Christian times and Christ Jesus himself. This was a very, very hard thing for them to forgive the murder and belittling and torture of the people that they cared about the most. And they did. And not only did they do it, but they felt an immense freedom because they had done this. And they were able to bring healing not just to the people who were victims, but to the less identified victims, the persecutors, who were truly the most condemned of all. And they even made programs for the people who were Nazis to help bring them reformation and change after the war, which is an incredible story to think of anybody able to do that. But this was a person who went into her 90s continuing to work very, very hard. She never lost her sense of purpose. And healing after a trauma is so very important because our light doesn't go out necessarily just because we've endured something awful. It doesn't have to, because our spirituality, our faith, our connection with God can bring us his hope and his healing, and he can take the darkest things in our life and make those things the things that shine into the world and bring the brightest light. And that's what we're here on earth to do, is to make the world a better place because we've lived in it. Not to just expect the world to make our lives better because we're in it and expect our circumstances to feed us. We must draw upon the things of the Spirit, things of God, so that we can become his vessels to shine a light that outlasts us. Corrie ten Boom's story has lasted for decades, and it continues to resonate in the souls of all of those who've undergone difficult experiences and wondered what to make of them and how to survive them. She gives us a brilliant example, and she even tells us the truth about the times when she doubted her ability to do that. Her sister was far better at enduring these crises and doing so with kindness in her heart. But she watched that example, and she changed and she grew spiritually, and she became a light to the world. She was Christ's light to the world. Christ is the light to the world, but she was definitely his ambassador to the world. She traveled all over the world delivering speeches after her time out of the concentration camp. And her freedom was not just being released. It was her choosing to release any bitterness and anything that would have held her back from doing the work that she was about to do. And Betsy, her sister, actually had a vision in the concentration camp of the work that Corrie was going to carry out after she was freed. And Corrie was amazed when she saw exactly the house the way Betsy had described it, exactly the barracks that was transformed the way that Betsy had described it, while she was still in the concentration camp, having those visions in the midst of illness. So the resilience of hope, the resilience of all of our spiritual value is one of the main core tenets of this story. So I do want to encourage you to read The Hiding Place by Corrie ten Boom, and it was edited and put together by Elizabeth Sherrill from Guidepost magazine, one of the main editors of that magazine that's been there for so long. So I do encourage you to read that so that you too can learn to not give up on your purpose and to make sure that you become a vessel of Christ's light into the world and fulfill the purpose that he designed you to fulfill. No matter what happens around you, no matter what things you don't think you have more than you think you do. You have more treasures to share with the world than you might have ever dreamed. So if you're struggling with something dark, if you're struggling with loss, I encourage you to read this and be inspired by the lives of these people who are no longer with us physically, but whose stories will resonate with us as long as we can find them in print. So I pray that you'll have a great day, and I hope that this book encourages you as much as it does me. I love sharing this story with other people. And I'll talk to you again next week.